breakdown. This is
WRSV, Elm City.
Turn Up.
Choice FM. The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
My people, good afternoon. This is James Gailliard. It is 5 o'clock, and welcome to the James Gailliard Show, live every Monday from 5 to 6 on Choice FM. Before I even get jumping in real good, I want to say good afternoon to everybody except people like me who can't remember my darn passwords. I need a system, y'all. I need a system. I just don't have a good system. So I wound up, trying to log into something before I came on the show. I wanted to check some information out real quick, and sure enough, I locked myself out of my own account because I just couldn't remember my passcode. So we have to do better. We've got to do better. But I'm glad you're on the show. We talk politics, culture, news, sports, religion. Also, because I know you're going to email me. So because I know you're going to email me, let me just apologize, all right? I don't choose the music, accuse my show, so I apologize for that profanity. You know that I think profanity is evidence of an uneducated, untrained mind, because I think there are better ways to tell people off without using it. You just have to have the vocabulary to do it. So I know before y'all text me, before y'all call me, Pastor, what kind of music you playing on your show? I apologize. We'll work on that a little bit as we move forward. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. We're going to talk politics, culture, news, sports, religion every Monday on Choice FM 92.1, the People Station. The objective, family, and I've got a whole lot of stuff to talk to us about today. The objective is to get us talking about things that matter, things that are going to move the needle, things that are going to improve our lives, things that are not empty-headed, things that are not shallow, right? So I want to have some fun with it, but I want to educate us. I want to expand our exposures, our horizons, our understanding of things, because that's what's going to be necessary. Like, I really believe, I don't know how you feel about this, but I believe that part of doing better is knowing better. It's just knowing. I think before we can get people engaged, we have to begin to educate people. I think that's why sometimes improvement takes so long. And I think sometimes people can become very disheartened over the political process because I don't really see the needle moving. I don't really see how my vote is mattering. And I think oftentimes we don't realize that it takes a long time to get substantive things done, especially when you have the wrong people in office. I'll probably talk a little bit about that later on today. But, things take time. As a matter of fact, I'll jump in on this now. I hadn't planned on going here at all, but things take time. Things take a lot of time. I'm going to talk about some hot things in the Senate and nationally and all of that. But I was thinking about just how long it took to get anti-lynching legislation. I mean, just to give you an example, it took 100 years for our government, and I'm laughing, although it's not funny, right? I mean, it wasn't until a couple years ago that we actually passed an anti-lynching legislation in this country. Let me tell you something. The first anti-lynching bill was introduced in 1900. Did you hear me? The first anti-lynching. I'm talking don't lynch people. I'm not even getting complicated. I'm not talking about health care. I'm not talking about education. I'm not talking about criminal justice reform. I'm just saying don't lynch anybody. Who could disagree with this? So, and actually, a representative from North Carolina, a congressman in 1900, Representative George Henry White, introduced. At that point, he was the only black lawmaker in the Congress. And he didn't even get the bill out of committee. And so for those of you that are not familiar with how bills are passed, whether federally or statewide, a bill is written, okay, and then it gets introduced. And then so a legislator will write the bill, or the legislative staff really, because for real family, it's these people in legislative analysis and fiscal affairs and bill writing and bill drafting. They are the rock stars. They are the rock stars. Like you could give them just a basic idea. Like, I want to pass a bill that says you can't pass a school bus when its lights are on, right? And then they just take the rest. Okay, and they'll bring you back a draft. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on how complicated the issue is. They bring you back a draft. Then you start tweaking it. Then you start looking for people that will sponsor it with you, and then looking for people that will co-sponsor it. And then it gets introduced. It gets read in. When it gets read in, at that point, it goes to a committee. It's a pathway to the bill. And so there are all these different kinds of committees at the House, at the state level, in the General Assembly, or at the federal level. And then the bill moves through committees. And so it could be 2 committees, 3 committees, 4 committees, whatever the case is, and whatever path the speaker determines. And then once it comes out of committees, if it keeps getting approved out of the committees, then it comes onto the floor of the House or the Senate, or depends on where it was introduced. And then it gets voted on there, and then it goes over to the other chamber meaning the Senate or the House. And then if it gets approved there, it goes to either the President of the United States or the governor for approval. So that's the quick James Gailliard Cliff Notes version of how a bill gets filed and passed. So 1900, the only black congressman from North Carolina happens to be George Henry White, introduces an anti-legislation bill. It never gets out of committee. Never. And then the Senate passed so they didn't do anything. Like, nothing happened for 100 years. Did you just hear what I said? Like, nothing happened for 100 years. Like, we could not get lawmakers to agree we should not lynch people in this country. Then a resolution gets passed by the Senate in 2005 saying, we're really sorry that we haven't passed anti-lynching legislation. And it wasn't until, 2020? What is this? 2024, right? It was 2020, y'all. So why am I opening the show with this? I'm opening because I don't normally do that. I'm opening the show with this because I want you to recognize that substantive legislation can be a long process. And that's why I think it's important that it could be the wrong process when we have the wrong people in office. If we have the right people in office, we can make stuff happen overnight, which is why we need to vote. Because as long as, you think my vote doesn't matter. The issue is that your vote does matter. It's that all the people not voting are diluting your vote. So that's why you have to become an advocate. You have to become a champion to say, hey, I also need to make sure my sphere of influence is voting. And so anyway, this is James Gailliard. Welcome to the James Gailliard Show. What do you want to talk about today? What's on your mind? What's taking way too long as far as you're concerned? What kind of things are just taking too long that you love to see happen? You'd like to see the needle moved. We open up every segment. Well, we almost always open up every segment with, they said what? And they said what did your preacher preach about? As you know, I'm a pastor. I have a wonderful privilege. Matter of fact, y'all, I'm going to be celebrating 24 years of pastoring tomorrow night. I started pastoring April 23rd in the year 2000, and I can't believe it's been 24 years that I've been pastoring God's people. It is a joy, but it's also a challenge, right? It's rough. But I'm grateful to God for the call. I'm grateful to God. So I'm going to teach a short 15-minute Bible study, and then some of my folk are going to come and celebrate with me, and we're going to have a big reception or some type of reception in our lobby. And so join us at 821 Word Plaza. That's something, look, you can't get a cupcake online. So, that's a good reason to be in the building, right? So what did your man or woman of God preach about yesterday? I say this every week. I'm going to keep saying it. Get you a good Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church. Life is hard without Jesus. Life is hard with Jesus. It is near impossible without him. And I just want to encourage you to get a growing relationship with him because it's needed. And so if you need a church recommendation, I'm happy to give them to you. Call up. Let me know where you live. But we believe at Word Tabernacle Church Alive is worth the drive. So go on down. Come on, drive down 64 if you're in Raleigh, Durham. And let me shout out everybody. Where are you listening from? Where are my Raleigh folk? Where are my Raleigh folk? Come on, throw your hands up. Throw your hands up. Where are my Raleigh folk? Let me know you're out there. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and chime in. Hey, I'm out here. Where are my Durham folk? Where are my Durham folk? Throw your hands up. Come on. Where are my Wilson folk? Where are my Rocky Mount folk? Where are my Tarboro folk? Where are my Pine Tops? Where are my Roanoke Rapids? Where are my Enfield people? Where are my Scotland Neck people? So grateful that you are all out there today. I'll check your comments at break. I do that and we take 2 breaks, one at 25 after the hour and one at 55 after the hour. And so the rest is all talk, y'all. So this is what I talked about. I talked about, amongst other things, the importance and the power of our individual testimony, our story. Whoever's listening today, I want to remind you, you have a story. I mean, you have a journey that deserves to be told. And if other people really understood what your pathway was, what your access route was, what your process was, what your journey was like, it would encourage other people, I promise you. So whatever your situation in life is, know that you have a testimony and a story to tell. But one of the things that I wanted to impress upon our people, that I want to impress upon you in this first segment, is not to be a people pleaser. And, I want to just encourage you, because that's a rough road. That is a really difficult journey to take, where you're going through life having to always please people. And I'm not suggesting that people's opinions don't matter and that people don't matter. Of course they do. But I think it can be intoxicating. It can be suffocating when we go through life seeking the approval of other people and not the approval of God. And at the end of the segment, I want to remind you the importance of getting an accountability partner. But I'm going to leave that for the end of the show if I remember to do that. Maybe y'all can remind me. So I want to jump in. Ghost guns. I have so much to talk about. Ghost guns. The Supreme Court, that's the U.S. Supreme Court, family. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed. And listen, would you do this for me? I keep forgetting that. If you're on Facebook right now, would you share this? Would you share this on your page? Would you just go ahead and share this broadcast? Let folk know that you're watching and you're listening, and I'm going to look at all your comments. And so the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court has decided whether has agreed to decide whether the Biden administration acted legally when it implemented a crackdown on the sale of do-it-yourself, quote-unquote, ghost gun kits. A ghost gun is like a kit that you can just order, and it has all of the components that will make up a real gun if you know how to put it together. And they're not regulated. And so our Attorney General, come on, question of the day, who's the United States Attorney General? Who got Merrick Garland? Yep. So our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, issued a stay on these in 2022. And, he was basically saying that, y'all, you can't do this, because in essence, if you sell it as a kit, you've really sold a firearm. And if you sold a firearm, it needs to be traceable. Because think about it. Somebody could order a kit, put the kit together, shoot somebody, kill them, and there's no record of any gun ever existing, because these ghost guns are untraceable weapons, and they're sold without background checks, and they can be frequently used in crimes. And so there's a New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that is upholding a lower court's injunction against the rule. And they are concluding that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms appear to have exceeded its statutory authority by reining in the circulation of ghost guns. I won't spend a lot of time on this today, but what say you? What is your opinion about these ghost guns? I bet you if I had law enforcement listening right now, and if you're in law enforcement, I'd love to get your opinion on this. But if you are a person who's passionate about law enforcement, or you are a law enforcement official or officer, like my son is in the Rocky Mount Police Department, I would love to get your opinion on ghost guns. I personally have deep opposition to them. I don't think you should be able to get a kit, put something together that's in the kit, and then kill somebody, and then it not be traceable and it not be regulated, and nobody knows where the weapon came from. So the Supreme Court is now going to take this up to see if Joe Biden's administration overstepped its statutory ability to to limit these weapons. And so just wanted to throw that out, let you know that was going on, let you know. And I need to probably bring either Sheriff Clee or Sheriff Stone, Clee Atkins or Keith Stone, and have them talk to me about ghost guns. I have a feeling they both would be in pretty deep disagreement with them. So I want to talk, something really happened. Now I'm geeking out, like I am nerding out, okay? Let me own that. I am nerding out. I'm nerding out because I'm watching what's going on politically, nationally. And I'm going to tie this to like our state politics. But there has been discussion about the House of Representatives this weekend. And this kind of goes into like since we were together last, because this happened on Saturday. So that's the second segment we always do. They said, what? And then we do since we were together. I'm going to get little memes or like little random like little songs to kind of go with these. Y'all just hanging there with me. I'm still learning this thing. If you're enjoying the show, by the way, week after week, let me know that as well. But I was nerding out because there was a $95 billion foreign aid bill passed in the House that is almost certainly going to go to the Senate. And so I'll give you the breakdown, but I'm going to tell you why I'm nerding out over this bill. So it was $95 billion, that's with a B. That's, and listen, I am not an anti-military guy. Like, I want our nation protected. I do think that we could be a little bit more, amenable and like you have to spend. We don't just spend so much money on war and on the military because, we have so much to protect. I mean, we do have a lot to protect, but we also spend so much money because we have so many darn enemies, and so, yeah, we have a lot to protect, but then we also have to protect ourselves from people that we just keep doing wrong things to. That's a whole nother show. So $95 billion, and we can't figure out affordable housing. $95 billion, and we still have one of the worst healthcare systems in the industrialized world. So anyway, $95 billion foreign aid bill passed. And this is what the bill does. It gives about $61 billion to Ukraine because they are struggling in their war and against Russia, and they need to replenish their stockpile of weapons. And, hey, look, Ukraine is hanging in there, man. And so, they're hanging in there. So the overall amount provided to Ukraine for the purchase of weapons would be $13 billion, and then they would give about $9 billion of economic assistance. So about $61 for Ukraine and replenishing U.S. weapons. $26 billion to support Israel and to provide humanitarian relief to the people in Gaza. Thank you, Lord. I'm gonna have to do a whole show about what's going on with Israel and Hamas and the Gaza Strip and the innocent people that are stuck in the middle of this war. I think two things can be true at the same time. I don't think you don't have to be, just because you're pro-Palestine doesn't mean you're anti-Israel, and just because you can be pro-Israel and not anti-Palestine. Like, why can't we just be pro-people? Like, why can't we just be pro-have a peaceful life? Why can't we just be everybody gets to exist? I think, well, anyway, that's a whole nother show. And so $26 billion for Israel, and then about $8 billion to support the Indo-Pacific region, i.e. Taiwan. So it was 4 bills: an Israel aid bill, a Ukraine aid bill, a Taiwan aid bill. That's 3, right? Are y'all paying attention? Israel aid, Ukraine aid, Taiwan aid. And then the 4th bill was a TikTok ban. And then they attached sanctions against Iran to the TikTok ban bill. So then it was 4 bills. But here's where I nerded out. Where I nerded out is before they voted those 4 individual bills, they voted for a rule package, or they voted a new rule into the House. The new rule they voted in was if these 4 bills pass individually, then before they go to the Senate, remember I gave you the primer on how bills become law, before they go to the Senate, we're going to roll all 4 of these bills into one single bill. That is wild. You have to be, I guess, in the General Assembly of Congress to kind of appreciate the statesmanship of that. And so I thought it was really interesting as I was watching how people voted, and I'm going to talk in detail about how people voted. So like 410 people voted for the whole package. The whole package was we're going to approve a rule because see, remember, know this. The House and the Senate are run by rules. So you literally have what's called House rules and Senate rules. And those rules tell you, they tell you how to function. They tell you how to dress. They tell you how to represent yourself. It tells you how to speak on the floor. Like, for example, it requires in the North Carolina General Assembly, our House rules, and I had to bring my House rules book in and kind of share some of it with you on a future show. But like it tells you have to wear a suit and tie. Like you have to wear a shirt and tie, as an example. So when we have long sessions or it's really hot in the chamber, you would literally have to make a request of the Speaker of the House to say, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a motion that would you entertain a motion that we temporarily suspend House rule, whatever. And then or the House rule may say you can't eat on the floor. Not literally the floor, but the floor of the House. So anyway, they had to create a whole rule for this because typically these 4 bills would go over as 4 separate bills and get voted on separately in the Senate. Well, what they did was they said, if we're going to get these 4 bills passed, we're going to roll them into one single bill, and then that bill is going to be the one that goes to the Senate floor, and, that bill is likely to get passed. And so I thought it was interesting because we're trying so hard to appease every side that we now have to create new rules within the House of Representatives just to get some work done. I was watching, I believe it was CNN I was watching, and it said that there was a study done and then they did a fact check that this is the least efficient Congress in the history of U.S. Congresses. Like they've gotten less legislation passed than anybody else. And let me tell you who the problems are. I'm going to tell you who the problems are. The reason we don't get stuff done is because of the extreme politics attached to it. When you have the hard right Republicans and you have your progressive Democrats who represent collectively probably, let me do some quick math, maybe 25% of the entire Congress, maybe. I can do some math at break. So you have about 99 people that are progressive Dems. You got about 44 hard right Republicans. Everyone else is much more mainstream center. But when you have these far left and far right people, they create these extremities that make it very difficult to get other work done. So I'm going to share with you about how folk in North Carolina voted, but give you this. Progressive Democrats are members of the House Progressive Caucus. The hard right Republicans are members of the House Freedom Fund. And we have a Freedom Caucus here in North Carolina as well. And I'll share more of those details with you. And so I'm glad you're joining. I'm going to check your comments in just a minute. This is James Gailliard. You're on the James Gailliard Show. I'm going to tell you about how they voted. I'm going to talk a little bit about the TikTok ban. I want to know what you think about that TikTok ban. And then I want to talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion at UNC and Duke and what shenanigans those schools are up to. I'll be right back. Thanks for watching and listening.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM. North Carolina requires ID to vote in 2024. Polls accept your North Carolina driver's license, U.S. passport, and NC voter ID, photo ID from your county's Board of Elections, a college or university ID, or a state, local government, or charter school employee ID. Be ready for election season. For more information, go to safevoterNC.org or ncblackalliance.com.
Diner, 132 South Church Street, Rocky Mount. Juicy burger, hot, delicious wing, yummy spaghetti, and the first pizza to ever be served downtown Rocky Mount. Hot, delicious pizza and more at Pop's Diner. Pop's Diner for hot dogs. Pop's Diner for lunch. Open daily from 11 till 7 p.m. City workers get the Pop's hookup. Pop's Diner open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Wings, pizza, burgers, spaghetti, salads, and more. Hot, fresh, and fast at Pop's downtown Rocky Mount. Open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
Hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Memorial Day celebration at the Pack House. Yeah, boy. On stage, Michi.
Let me see you shake a tail feather.
And Black Diamond.
True love.
Sunday, May 26th. Les Long in Choice FM's Southern Soul Sunday with DJ Mikey D live on the air. The Grill Masters and Fry Masters are on site all day. Doors open at 3, and all veterans and active duty military qualify for drawings all day. We're getting it hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Sunday, May 26th at the Pack House. Michi. Black Diamond. The Pack House, 100 William Perry Road, Lewisburg, with Choice FM. Hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Don't miss the show, party, and holiday cookout Sunday, May 26th at the Pack House, 100 William Perry Road, Lewisburg.
AURN News.
I'm Ebony McMorris. A lawsuit has been filed after a video surfaced showing jail guards at the Appling County Jail in Georgia watching as one of their own choked Tremar Harris, a 37-year-old black man, while he was restrained. The incident occurred in January 2022, involved guard William Rentz using a chain to choke Harris, yelling, "Gonna put you back in the cotton field with the other boys," while Harris was immobilized in a chair. The suit, championed by civil rights attorney Harry Daniels, targets the officers present who failed to intervene during this brutal act. The footage revealed not only the violent assault, but the guards' refusal to stop or report the incident, prompting calls for a Department of Justice investigation. The inaction of the guards, identified as Dayton Brannon, Cannon McLeod, and Ansley Fennell, raises severe questions about the culture within the facility, particularly towards black inmates. For AURN News, I'm Ebony McMorris.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
My people, my family, welcome back for our second segment. This is James Gailliard, and you're listening and watching the James Gailliard Show. Would you go ahead and share this? Would you let someone or text somebody and say, look, listen to this brother that's on Choice 92. Tell me what you think about what he's talking about. And so come on, jump on in. Seeing some of your comments, and I'll read off some of them for my listening audience on radio in just a moment. I'm talking about the $95 billion foreign aid bill and how long it takes to get stuff done in our nation when we have the wrong people representing us. And so, very interesting bill. They had to create a whole new rule in order to get it over the finish line. I think it's almost certain to get through the Senate, but I think there's some interesting side notes to this. And so here are a couple of issues for if you're just joining. It was creating a new rule that if these 4 bills passed, they would roll into one bill when they went to the Senate. There was an Israel aid bill that also included relief to the innocent people in Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza. That's horrific. I mean, we need to be more humanitarian in our efforts and our perspective, y'all. But I'm going to do a whole show on Israel and Palestine. And then some of the money was for Ukraine, who is fighting the good fight of faith. Now, listen to this, though. The majority, so it was 4 different bills. Y'all got that, right? The majority of Republicans voted against Ukraine. And the reason they voted, and let me say something else. Not only did the majority of them vote against Ukraine, but the only way, and this is how partisanship's supposed to work. So the Speaker of the House comes up with this idea to create these 4 individual bills and then offer a rule that has to get passed. The only reason it gets passed is because of the Democratic support that works with a fraction of Republicans that was big enough. Because there were, as a matter of fact, I want you to hear this. It was the Republicans' House Speaker's rule. And let me, I got some feedback coming through on my microphone, y'all. It's kind of looping around. So it's the Speaker of the House's rule. More Democrats than Republicans vote for the rule, so they're able to get it across the finish line. So you can say in this situation, Democrats did save the day on this. And so, but what I thought was interesting is that a majority of the Republicans voted against Ukraine aid, which I thought is interesting because then it makes you kind of feel like why some of them are just far right and they just don't believe foreign aid should go out the door, period. I mean, we have those, and I'm going to run a list of them down. But some are just like, I think they're in the President Vladimir Putin, the Russian president's, like, I don't know, infatuation club or something. And so I thought that was interesting. And what the other thing that's interesting is Israel, on the other hand, on the vote for the bill for Israel aid, almost every Republican voted yes. And then you had a group of Democrats that voted against it, which I thought was I'm not surprised by that. And so very interesting. How did our people vote in North Carolina? So all the Democrats voted in favor of Ukraine aid except for Congresswoman Tlaib. And all of them supported funding Taiwan. But 37 of the far left-leaning Democrats voted against the Israel aid bill. Very interesting, right? So we have these factions. I think that I believe that the United States' strongest position of advocacy worldwide is our ability to lift up a paradigm where all people get to exist in peace. I really would love to see us take the lead in that as a nation. I also shout out the fact that there was humanitarian aid. I don't know how much because I haven't read through all the bill. What's interesting here in North Carolina, and then I'm going to move on, is that pretty much everyone in our delegation. Okay, question, here we go. Here's the next Jeopardy question. How many congressional representatives, how many congressmen do we have representing us currently in North Carolina? Yes, 14. Whoever said 14, you would be correct. And I appreciate, let me get some of y'all comments. Natasha, you almost signed up for a college class. I'm glad you are appreciating our discussion. Kendrick Revis, Sharpsburg Police Department, says no to ghost guns. We talked a little bit about ghost guns at the top of the show. And so appreciate all of you that are watching, just making sure I'm not missing any. Rescinding the full ride scholarship at Duke. Yeah, rescinding. Yes, they are rescinding it. I'm going to try to get to Duke and UNC because both schools are just up to their shenanigans. So everybody in North Carolina that represents us, all 14 of them, voted for the most part yes for all four of these bills, with the exception of, let me see, Dan Bishop, who only voted yes for Israel. He voted no for everything else. Patrick McHenry, he voted yes for everything, but he voted no on the TikTok bill. This is what's funny to me. What's funny to me is Democratic Congressman Jeff Jackson. Yes for the rule. Yes for Israel. Yes for Ukraine. But then he votes no on Taiwan and TikTok. I think the only reason he voted, and I haven't talked to him, so let me be very clear about that. Let me tell you why this is funny to me. You have to know Jeff Jackson. The reason I know Jeff Jackson from when we served together in the General Assembly. When I was in the House, he was in the Senate. Well, Jeff Jackson is like the TikTok. Jeff Jackson probably does TikTok more effectively than any politician in America. Certainly more effectively than any other politician in North Carolina. I'm talking about any others. Jeff Jackson is the TikTok king. So it's hilarious to me that he would not vote in regard to this TikTok ban. Now, y'all are saying, say more. Why in the heck are we trying to ban TikTok? So let me talk a little bit about what's going on with this. And it's going to be interesting because, I mean, this is one of them things where I think people are just kind of making trying to make a point, because by the time this gets tied up in the courts and all that, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So let's be very clear about that. But Saturday, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Congress that is, passed, I'm just going through my notes, passed a bill that could force the sale of the TikTok app. And it would initially they wanted it sold within 6 months. Now it's within a year. Or it would have it banned from U.S. app stores. The TikTok bill, which the House has overwhelmingly passed in a previous version last month, was attached to a large package of aid and national security bills to support, as I've said to you, Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Here's the problem with TikTok. What they're saying is that TikTok, of course, has immense popularity. It has ties to ownership to China, and they're claiming a national security concern. See, I thought initially the concern was just the damage of young minds, but it's really national security. So what they're saying is that the Chinese government, the company that owns TikTok is ByteDance, B-Y-T-E Dance, okay? So they're saying that ByteDance then, because think about it, they have all this user data. I mean, it's crazy popular. They have all this information on people, right? They can run algorithms. They can do all this. So they're saying that if the Chinese government asked ByteDance, who was the owner of TikTok, to provide the U.S. data, then if ByteDance gives the Chinese government our data, then they can begin pushing propaganda using their algorithms, and they can wind up influencing elections and all that good stuff, or all that bad stuff, I should say. So the Office of the Director of National Intelligence is releasing a report saying that China used TikTok to meddle in the 2022 midterm elections. So this is where, so I will say this. Let me say this, y'all. What I do want to say about this is be careful. I mean, look, I'm not here to tell you not to use TikTok. That's not what this show's about. You know, I mean, I'm on pretty much every app. I have people that help me. I don't personally post. And so if you ever are waiting for me to respond to something, know that I'm not usually out there, okay? But I mean, I have a presence out there. But be careful, like, how much of your business you tell. And be careful, like, don't tell it all. Because it can then start putting, like, have you ever like been on your computer and you've been searching, you do a Google search for, I don't know, I did a Google search last night on men's leather backpacks. You know, I have a leather backpack fetish. Not in the sense that I have to have multiple ones, but I have to always have a very nice one. I love, like, that's my swag. That's my look. I don't know what's the cool way to say that now, right? My drip or whatever, I don't know. But, you know, I like, that's my look. Like, I'm going to always have a leather backpack with me. Like, that's just what I do. And so mine is starting to get a little worn, so I started looking up men's leather backpacks. And then sure enough, I'm on my phone, and what pops up is an ad for men's leather backpacks, because the apps have algorithms. They know what we're watching. They know what interests us. So the reason that matters is because then they know how to run certain commercials that it hits our feed. They know how to geofence. They know how to do all the things that will make us sway our positions on something. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now when the TikTok ban bill goes. Now, mind you, the TikTok ban bill, you know, also had some other stuff attached to it, which is always the crazy part to me. Like, it also has sanctions against Iran. That's one of the things that makes me crazy about these bills, because they just combine stuff that just don't need to be combined. And then sometimes they make a bad bill good, or, I mean, a good bill bad. So what's going to happen next? It's going to go to the Senate, and then these bills will then be voted up or down in the Senate. I can almost tell you they're going to be voted up, because Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to see them pushed. And that's just how this game is played. whoever's the leader of the House, whoever's the leader of the Senate, they really get to drive the agenda. They get to drive the pace. They get to drive. And the reason, let me give you an example. When I say they drive the pace, because so when that bill comes over, it has to go to committee. But it's going to get read into the Senate. When it gets read into the Senate, it's going to then be put on a path. Well, you could put it on a path to see 5 committees or a path to see 1 committee. So if they really want to push it through, it's not going to see a lot of committee work. I remember being in the General Assembly once, and we had a health care bill that was not sent to the Health Committee. How crazy is that? So I remember being on the floor debating the bill, and I said, I'm looking at, because you can look on what's called your dashboard, and your dashboard will show you the path that a bill takes. So once it comes from this committee to this committee, so like the speaker will say to rules, which is the first committee, it goes to rules, and then it goes from, it goes to rules last usually. If it goes to rules, it's just going to sit and it won't move. It's just going to die there. But say it'll go to health, and then to transportation, and then to finance, and then to this, and then that. So it might be 5 committees, and it just bounces from committee to committee every time it gets passed. How about I had a health bill that didn't ever go to the health committee? So I was debating the bill. I'm like, how is it possible that we're about to vote health care bill into law that the health committee has not weighed in on? The reason was because the speaker wanted to push through that health bill, and it didn't want to have a long pathway. So it's going to get read in. It's going to probably have a pretty quick pathway. The Senate previously sat on this earlier, but the House has made some adjustments and some changes to the TikTok bill, and as a result of that, that is likely going to pass. And then what's TikTok going to do? TikTok, if the bill passes, is going to challenge it. They're going to challenge it in courts. They're going to say that it's unconstitutional. It's going to say that it unfairly targets a single company. It's going to say, I want you to get this, it's going to say that it violates the First Amendment. They're going to say, hey, we get a right of free speech, so we get to put on what we want to put on. But the legal experts are saying that TikTok is going to have a hard time making that case. And they're going to say that there's a precedent for national security concerns that outweigh free speech. Hear what I just said. There's a precedent for national security concerns that outweigh free speech. And so I was looking at something from Cornell University, what is called their Tech Policy Institute. And they said, the professor said, one of the few things that can get around free speech and constitutional questions is national security. So, folks, hey, stay tuned, right, for more information and more things that are happening. All right, on to our last discussion of the day. Let me see, what are y'all talking about out here? I've got some of you watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. No questions, no comments. Oh, y'all a quiet group today. So let's watch. Let's jump in on diversity, equity, and inclusion. First of all, let me just say this. I'm an advocate of embracing diversity, equity, inclusion in every asset, in every area of life. I don't need to like your lifestyle, but your lifestyle needs to be represented. I don't have to get along with you. I don't have to agree with you. But representation matters for everybody. Constitutional questions is national security. So, folks, hey, stay tuned, right, for more information and more things that are happening. All right, on to our last discussion of the day. Let me see, what are y'all talking about out here? I've got some of you watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. No questions, no comments. Oh, y'all a quiet group today. So let's watch. Let's jump in on diversity, equity, and inclusion. First of all, let me just to other philosophies. You see this all the time. Like, you see people that wind up in schools, like they could potentially be, the only, black person in a school or the only white person in a school. And they wind up thinking like the majority of that group of people because there's not adequate representation there to really provide a legitimacy of an alternative way of thinking. That's why it's so important that when we consume information from a variety of resources. Like, I want to encourage you to have what's the expression, like dietitians, like you have to have a colorful plate, right? Like, you can't just have, like, I'm notorious for having, a bunch of, I have to fight to get the darn vegetable, but I'm going to have a starch. I might have 2 starches. I'm going to probably have a protein, and it's usually meat, because I don't eat fish. But that's not healthy. Like, I have to have diversity on my plate. I need to have some greens on my plate. I have to have some color on my plate. That's how life is. Like, we have to have people that can challenge how we see the world. And it doesn't disqualify or discount how we see the world, but it does give me the value of added perspective. And so some things have happened in our state recently. The first is Duke University. And Duke University is cowering to a U.S. Supreme Court ruling from, I think it was last year. And, this is, it's frustrating for me. But let me find my notes on this. But Duke University has ended the Reginaldo Howard Scholars Program. That program gave a full ride. I need you to hear this. Merit scholarship. A full ride merit scholarship to a small cohort of students of African descent in every incoming class. So if you could get into Duke, African American, you got a full ride. And it's going to be replaced with what they call the Reginaldo Howard Leadership Program. And that's going to be non-competitive and open to all students. And so, what you think, y'all? I struggle with this. Who was it? Was it James Buchanan Duke? Was that the guy that started all this? I mean, if you make your money in tobacco in the early 1900s or late 1800s or whenever it is, how are you making that money exactly? You're making that money. This is Jim Crow. This is slavery. This is pre-civil rights. This is pre-voting rights. This is a small segment of the population, largely just white men, have access to anything that's significant. So you really make your money on the oppression of poor people and the oppression of people of color. And then a fund is started to say, hey, we can give some of this money back to the descendants of the people we oppressed. And then we come along and we change the program. And then this is what Duke says. Our commitment to diversity remains strong, including our support of graduates pursuing HBCU graduates pursuing graduate programs at Duke. Add our full tuition grants for undergraduate students from North and South Carolina whose families earn less than $150,000, as well as offer various forms of assistance offered to students from North and South Carolina whose families earn below $65,000. And so, I mean, this is a year after the Supreme Court banned the use of affirmative action in admissions decisions, and now everybody is kind of kowtowing to what they say. I want to give you some data, but before I do, let me be an equal opportunist here, and let me talk about UNC. Meanwhile, up the street, we leave Durham and we go up the street to Chapel Hill. We have one single committee of the UNC System Board of Governors who meets, and they approve a policy that would eliminate every DEI position on every North Carolina public university campus. Did you hear me? They're going to eliminate every DEI position. If the policy goes into effect, and I can tell you it will. And let me tell you what happens with this, y'all. Basically, the UNC Board of Governors wanted to do this before the General Assembly did it. Because basically, if they didn't do it voluntarily, they knew the General Assembly was going to make them do it. And so, because Speaker Morris talked about it, other people talked about it. So if the policy goes into effect, listen to this. Chancellors of each public university, let me help y'all, North Carolina State, NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Greensboro, UNC Charlotte. You get the picture, right? Okay. UNC Pembroke, UNC in Wilmington. If the policy goes into effect, chancellors of every public university in the state would have to describe to the UNC system president, Peter Hines, what their, quote, reductions in force and spending are that result from the cuts and how the savings achieved can be redirected to initiatives related to student success and well-being. I want you to hear what they said. We don't even want the money back. We want to take the money from anything that's diversity, equity, and inclusion related. And we want you to recycle the money back into the entire school system. Here's the problem. There's a small a pot of money available that can benefit a group of students that have historically been marginalized, oppressed, and not had equitable opportunity. Now, while those students are making inroads, guess what we do? We move the goalpost. And we say, hey, take that money away. And we want to now recycle that money into everybody. Like, we want to recycle that money so that the money of the children of the Duke family can take advantage of it. I'm talking about UNC, but I'm talking about families that are wealthy and families that are well-to-do. So the policy would likely require jobs specifically dedicated to diversity to be eliminated. So people are literally going to lose their jobs on this. I just missed a break, y'all. So let me stop right here. This is James Gailliard. You are watching and listening to the James Gailliard Show. When we come back, I'm going to finish talking about DEI stuff at UNC and Duke, and then I'm going to talk about the importance of having mentors and accountability. We'll be right back.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM. Hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Memorial Day celebration at the Pack House.
Yeah, boy.
On stage, Michi
Let me see you shake a tail feather.
and Black Diamond.
True love.
Sunday, May 26th. Less long in Choice FM's Southern Soul Sunday with DJ Mikey D live on the air. The Grill Masters and Fry Masters are on site all day. Doors open at 3, and all veterans and active duty military qualify for drawings all day. We're getting it hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Sunday, May 26th at the Pack House. Michi. Black Diamond. The Pack House, 100 William Perry Road, Lewisburg, with Choice FM. Hot out the grease and hot off the grill. Don't miss the show, party, and holiday cookout Sunday, May 26th at the Pack House, 100 William Perry Road, Lewisburg.
Pop's Diner, 132 South Church Street, Rocky Mount. Juicy burger, hot, delicious wing, yummy spaghetti, and the first pizza to ever be served downtown Rocky Mount. Hot, delicious pizza and more at Pop's Diner. Pop's Diner for hot dogs. Pop's Diner for lunch. Open daily from 11 till 7 p.m. City workers get the Pop's hookup. Pop's Diner. Open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Wings, pizza, burgers, spaghetti, salads, and more. Hot, fresh, and fast at Pop's downtown Rocky Mount. Open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
Olivia here. Looking for that nighttime skincare routine that will have your skin ready for fall? Well, Olay has you covered. First, I use Olay Collagen Peptide 24 Eye Cream. It provides 24-hour hydration and visibly firms that delicate eye area in just 2 weeks. Then I use Olay Retinol 24 Night Moisturizer in the beautiful purple jar. It hydrates better than that $100 retinol cream and gives me smoother, younger-looking skin. Get $10 off 2 moisturizers at retailers nationwide and Olay.com. Check your local newspaper for coupon and more details.
North State Banks, The Breakfast Club.
12 jurors have been picked for the Donald Trump's hush money trial.
Dropping the clues bombs for juror number 5, damn it.
She was the only potential juror who raised her hand when lawyers asked if they have ever heard of Trump's other criminal cases. Now, when they asked her where she gets her information from, she said sometimes listens to the Breakfast Club radio show.
Dropping the clues bombs for that damn. You hear me? And she said President Trump speaks his mind, and I'd rather that than someone who's in office who you don't know what they're thinking. Oh, my God, y'all in trouble come November. You hear me, Democrats? All I know is salute to juror number 5. She is an honest person because she's the only person who raised her hand and said she's heard of Trump's other criminal cases.
And sometimes
y'all know y'all lying if y'all say y'all ain't never heard of Trump's other criminal cases.
That's right.
If you haven't heard of Trump's other criminal cases, you should occasionally listen to the Breakfast Club, too.
There you go.
Like juror number 5.
North State Bank presents The Breakfast Club on Choice FM. Charlemagne the God, Just Hilarious, and DJ Envy. North State Bank's The Breakfast Club. North State Bank, better every day. The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Hour go fast or what? So, if you're just joining, I'm James Gailliard. This is the James Gailliard Show. Go ahead and share this. I'm talking about recent decisions in our state around diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly at two of our premier universities in the state, Duke University and the University of North Carolina. Well, actually, not the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I take that back. My next statement is about to be about Chapel Hill. It's the entire UNC system board of governors that has required the removal of, and it's still subject to one more vote. Listen to what Jim Blaine, who is a board member of the Board of Trustees at Chapel Hill, says. And by the way, let me help y'all connect the dots. And I hope I'm looking at some of what y'all are saying. Please be angry enough to vote. Please be frustrated and disheartened enough to say this is why we have to vote. So Jim Blaine, who is a member of the Board of Trustees, and I can tell you, like, the Republican Party has stacked the Board of Trustees. When you get around to it, go on, just type in, Google UNC System Board of Trustees and see what that board looks like. It is not representative of the student body. I can tell you that. And it should be. And so Jim Blaine, who was the chief of staff for Senator Leader Phil Berger, okay, he's a trustee. I want you to hear what he had to say. He says, "It is my belief that it is likely that the Board of Governors or the state legislature will follow Florida's path as it relates to DEI this year. Will follow Florida's path. We already know the foolishness going on in Florida around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the policy would require jobs specifically dedicated to diversity to be eliminated. It would, or changed in some way to eliminate ties to DEI. The current policy will remain in place until the board's final vote on the new policy, which is upcoming probably at their next meeting. I have to get you that date for a future show. It mandates that the system office and all schools within the system employ, right now they are required to employ DEI officers. The new policy will remove those mandates. And this is how it's written, family. I want you to pay attention. This is how it's written. It's going to remove the mandates and says that no position of employment can exist regarding a given, quote, view of social policy. So they're fixing this so whatever is going on significantly social policy wise in the future, the schools cannot address it. So, and I'm not here to make lifestyle choices for people. All right, so don't come for me. But let me give you an example of a policy, a social policy. So let's just say there is a large number of LGBTQ plus students that wind up within a certain school. The policy will say that the school cannot hire a person to be in support of that particular group of people, knowing that they are going to have a more difficult time to fit in. They won't be able to do that. If there's a large number of Asian students admitted, they won't be able to provide support services specifically to those Asian students. So it's written on any view of social policy, and it's written on any political controversy of the day. So anything that's going on politically, any political controversy of the day, these are schools of these are schools of higher learning. And they're literally saying, if there is something going on, a political controversy, we cannot hire a position to help students better understand and navigate that controversy. What? And so universities across the UNC system who generally employ chief diversity officers or other officials tasked with overseeing these offices or efforts related to diversity and inclusion on their campuses are going to be removed. So, for example, at UNC Chapel Hill, I have a daughter there who's finishing up her junior year and another daughter who graduated from there a couple years ago. At UNC Chapel Hill, for example, the university currently employs a chief diversity officer. and that person serves as vice provost of equity and inclusion. Let me say this in closing, family. Diversity brings new ideas. Diversity helps us to act within a pathway to unlock creativity of people. The more organization is open to perspectives from people of different backgrounds, then the more resilient that organization is or that institution, the more creative, the more successful. College education is not just going to class every week. It is rooming with people that are different than you. It is attending classes and having discussions of people of different backgrounds. So diversity improves performance, and it creates a positive friction. It helps me understand the differences of people and work through those things. So by the UNC Board of Governors doing this, they have diluted public education in North Carolina. Very disappointed. I hope it motivates all of us to vote. Listen, as usual, I'm out of clock, but I'm not out of content. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of talk. But they only give me an hour. This is James Gailliard. You have been listening and watching the James Gailliard Show. I hope you'll join me next week for another episode of talking politics and culture and news and sports to feed our minds. Have a great week, family.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
This is
WRSV, Elm City.
Turn Up.
Choice FM.